Merry Christmas. We're doing quick and simple meatballs. They can be for a weeknight meal. They can be for a party cocktail meatball. Whatever you want, they have a quick and simple ricotta pesto sauce on top. You're gonna love them. They're super tender, they're super delicious. Let's make some. Meatballs are always a crowd pleaser, and what's great about these is they can be a cocktail meatball, as in for an appetizer or just for cocktails, whatever you're doing for the holiday season, or they can be made into a meal kind of as the main dish, have some sides with it, have some salads, some different things. So to start, it's gonna be a pretty simple process, but I like to start with a quick panade. So that's gonna be some breadcrumbs. I just do a fresh breadcrumb. You can do a panko too, but I think the fresh breadcrumbs work best in a panade because they soak in the best amount of some whole milk. So when you put these together, it's kind of a gross looking mixture. It really just ends up making almost like a paste. But what this does is really holds on and traps in the moisture in a meatball. So it's kind of a great little sneaky way to make sure you're ending with a delicious and moist meatball. One of those umptious ones. You know when you sometimes have a meatball, you know if it's good or you know if it's bad, because if it's dry, it's bad. And if it's good, it just holds on to moisture. And that's what this is. This panade, the bread and the milk, it melts into the meatballs, so you don't even know they're there, but you just think they're the best meatball ever. So I'm just mixing that enough do you see how it just starts soaking and creating really just this little paste? That's exactly what we want. A little bit of milk still in there. I'm just gonna let that sit just for a couple seconds here. And now we can talk about the meat. So these are designed to be with chicken or turkey, just ground chicken or turkey. I'm using ground turkey, whatever usually I would have. Both of those are interchangeable and they work great. What I like is it's a lighter meat. It works really well with kind of all the spices we're using and not being too heavy. And that to me is what's important here. So into this, we wanna make sure we have some extra flavor. So what we're gonna do is, this has been sitting just a couple seconds, which is what I want, because now that milk is in there. So we're gonna put this right in, and you can see any residual milk just put in there with it. It's nothing special, it's just that idea of really making sure these are moist and delicious, and that's what you want. So putting that in, then what I'm gonna do is just use that same bowl, it's dirty, I'm gonna crack my egg right into it, just so I can quickly beat it up. You know, when you're putting a whole egg in there, if you weren't gonna beat it up at all, it's kinda hard to mix it evenly. So if you can just beat it just enough so it'll be easier for you to combine in the meatballs itself. An egg, it binds. So just like it does in other things, an egg is gonna actually bind these meatballs, meaning gonna give them good structure, help them hold on to everything, and that's what you want. So for seasonings, I have some garlic granulars or dried garlic, I have some onion powder, and some black pepper. Now, the dried and the powder, I feel like we give it a bad name anymore, like, oh, it's just like a dried, why don't you use fresh? I like it because it's a pantry staple. It has a great strong flavor, but it's not astringent, and I think it works really well. A good amount of salt. Salt is super important because it's a seasoning, so it actually is gonna help bring out the flavor of everything else. And then to finish this mixture, we're gonna do some just grated Parmesan cheese. And what this is, it acts as a seasoning itself, but we know that like nutty, beautiful flavor it has. So I'm gonna grate some of this in and just mix it all up. The best way to mix it is with our best tools, which is our hands. So with clean hands, mix it up. And as I'm mixing, I'm gonna add some olive oil. The thing is, chicken, turkey, they don't have a lot of fat in them, which is great, but you need a little bit of fat for flavor, for binding, and just to give it a little bit more of a richness and umptiousness, if you will. And so that's why I'm making sure to get it all in there. Now you can see this comes together super quickly. Raw meat, it's nothing pretty, but it's to get to that end result is what we're doing here. So once it's mixed and you have all the ingredients evenly mixed, you don't want big pockets of just one thing anywhere, which is pretty easy and quick to do. We're gonna start making little meatballs. Now you can use a scoop if you want to. I think it's great if you want to portion things up that way to just be able to scoop it. I still would like to then form it with two hands probably, just so I have a nice more even ball. So I'm gonna pass it back and forth just to make sure I have a nice little meatball. And you can do whatever size you want. I think these little more bite size or like 2-bite ones, that to me is just about perfect. So I make a scoop, and if you want to eyeball it, it doesn't matter. No one's gonna tell anyone. And then we're just gonna put them onto a parchment lined baking sheet. So instead of browning these off, we're gonna let the oven do the work. We're gonna roast them in the oven. We're gonna make then a quick sauce, finish them in the oven, and they're gonna be beautiful. So I'm gonna get all these made, and we'll do a couple final steps before we put them in the oven. Have all the meatballs formed, put into places, wash my hands so they're clean, and now they're pretty much ready to go in the oven. I do like to then also put a little bit of a drizzle of olive oil just right over them, just quickly. This helps them roast, give them more flavor. Again, it's just it just finishes them, gives them that last final to help caramelize all the edges and bits. So I'm gonna put them right into an oven, let them roast until they're just about done, and then we're gonna put everything together with a sauce. It's gonna be a good meal or a cocktail party. I think you're gonna love it. The meatballs have fully roasted. I removed them from the oven. They're getting a little bit browned, and I do make sure to check the temperature. I want them fully cooked. I don't want to not know if the cinders are done. So I do check the temperature. And do you see how they can get a ring of some of their juices or fat? I do take that off, just because it's a more, you don't want that to go into the sauce we're gonna create or into the final dish. So I just kind of went around if they get a collar, and it depends on what, it all depends what manufacturer you get your meat from or whatever, it can change. So I just remove that. They look more cleaned up. So now what I wanna do is put them right into my baking dish. This is just, to me, such an easy dish, and it's so fun that you can make it, I don't know, I think around the holidays, whether it's, like I said, for some type of party you're gonna have, or if it's just like needing more weeknight meals that maybe seem a little bit, kind of comfort food of the moment, seasonal, but also just could go together quickly. That's what these are. And your family is gonna love them. That's the best part about these. They're gonna be very just like easy to eat, easy to enjoy with whatever sides you wanna have them with. So whether I'm gonna serve them for kind of a party or anything, I like to just put them in a low dish like this. You could also do it in a skillet, whatever works for you. And then on top, we have some ricotta here. I'm gonna put some pesto with it. Now, I use pesto that I've had in the freezer. I make it in the summer, and then I just freeze it. Use whatever pesto you like. If you have a certain one that you love, use it. Do whatever works for you. And I'm gonna mix that with the ricotta. It may sound kind of gross, but the thing is the ricotta gets that beautiful kind of like ooey gooiness in the oven. And when it's mixed with the pesto, this is where so much of the flavor is gonna come from. It's gonna actually like melt into all these. So that's why we didn't over season or put tons of flavorings in our meatballs, because it's all gonna be right here. So I just spoon this over, let some of it fall on the meatballs, let some of it fall off, because as it goes in the oven, it's gonna bake and it's gonna somewhat fall off of them anyway, but you want it to coat a few of them maybe, kind of get on top of them. This is what's great about this. You have kids, they wanna cook with you? This is a great one to do it. It's really, there's a lot of leeway for how this can work. Nothing is perfect. That's the point. And that's how, I find, like with my nieces and nephew, when you get them excited about what they're eating, when they're a part of it, that's when it comes together. So this is a great kid-friendly dish because meatballs, like that's an obvious yes. And then when we put the cheese on top, so that's all we have to do to get the sauce ready. For the cheese, I'm doing some mozzarella, and I'm using that, not the fresh mozzarella. I'm using that block mozzarella that if you grew up and made homemade pizza, that's oftentimes what you would do. That's what I'm using. And I don't like to use the pre-shredded just because it has a coating on it, and I don't think it melts near as nicely as just shredding some quickly on your own will do. So we're gonna spread this out, put that all around, and that's gonna get the melting, browning, and then a little bit more of the parm. And the parm just adds that seasoning on top, adds that nutty, beautiful flavor. And we're just gonna spread that out all over. Now we're gonna pop these back in the oven. So the thing is, they just need to bake enough that everything gets melting, gets a little bit more gooey, starts going and coating everything, and then they're ready to go. They've been back in the oven, you can see everything melts together. At the very end, I did put on the broiler just to give it some browning on some of that cheese. I just think that looks nice for a presentation. And I like the texture it adds, but totally optional. Let's just remember though, browning is flavor. When things get nice and crusty, that's flavor. So now you just serve them up. So imagine this with like some good bread too to sop up all that pesto. Imagine it if you want with a salad or with soup. It really is just, to me, multi-useful and versatile. And look how tender. So tender, look at that opening up. They just like fall apart, and that's exactly what you want. They're super hot, but I will sacrifice what I need. I wish I could describe to you how tender these are. They're like melt in your mouth tender, and there is so much flavor. One, the meatball itself. We did some of that onion, garlic powder for a little bit of seasoning, and it really made a difference. That panade made them super perfect textured and tender. But then that pesto and cheese on top, it adds a richness. It adds like, it punches your taste buds with that beautiful basil flavor if you use a basil pesto. It's one of my favorites. What I love about this is it's a weeknight, it's a weekend, or it's a holiday special for an appetizer or party, whatever you're gonna do. So I hope you share this video around so everyone can see party food can be easy, weeknight food can be easy. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Check my website, wiseguy.com, for this recipe and all my other recipes on there. For the holidays, for any time, there's recipes on there for you. So make something special, make something delicious. That's the whole point.